Okay, team, welcome to your independent practice on redundancy. We're gonna go over a couple of these questions together, and then you are gonna finish them independently. So what you're doing for this first part is highlighting or bolding the words in these sentences that have the same or similar meaning. So words that are redundant. And then you're going to revise the sentence so that it is more concise, right? Uses economy of word choice, eliminates that redundancy. So let's look at these first couple together. So the students were asked to cooperate together to come to a solution to the problem. So what is redundant about this sentence? Enter that into the Nearpod. What's redundant here in this sentence? Okay. So if you said cooperate together, you are correct. That is redundant because cooperate means work together. So how should we revise this? What should we do? Okay, if you said just get rid of the word together, you are correct, right? So they were asked to cooperate. That means work together. We don't need the word together. All right, let's look at number 2. So for most people, riding in a hot air balloon is a unique once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So where's the redundancy? First, find that where there are a couple of words with the same or similar meanings. Great, so unique and once-in-a-lifetime are similar, not exactly the same though. So I want you to think about, for this particular situation, what would be the better word to use? Right? So think about, for most people, riding in a hot air balloon is a unique opportunity or a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So revise the sentence based on what word you think would be best here. Okay, if you said get rid of unique, oh yeah, you're correct. So the reason, even though once in a lifetime is a little longer than unique, it's more precise, more accurate for this situation, right? For most people, riding in a hot air balloon is a once in a lifetime opportunity, meaning it happens like once. Unique just means like every once in a while. So once in a lifetime is actually the stronger word to use here. Okay, so go ahead and finish the rest of these, 3, 4, and 5 on your own. And then stamp, how do you choose the best word? Okay, now that you have done that, we are going to move on to practice 2. First, you need some vocabulary. So omit, you'll see omit in a lot of redundancy questions. Omit just means delete or get rid of. So add that into your notes right now. Omit means delete or get rid of. Okay, so now you are going to answer these multiple choice questions. These are all redundancy questions. And the reason we know they're redundancy questions is because they have their answer options are kind of all different ways of saying the same thing, right? So motivation and personal drive, determination, drive and heart, perseverance and grit, the heart. These are all different ways of saying the same thing. So you need to choose the most concise option. So answer those 4 multiple choice questions. And then we will move on to wordiness. Okay, so now that you've answered those questions, we're going to talk about a different kind of redundancy question, wordiness. So being wordy, if you're being wordy, and I've talked to a few people about this in their writing. So sometimes the issue is that you're not repeating ideas. Instead, you're using words that are like too complicated or too long, like not exactly the right word to use, just too complicated to get your point across. And this is called being wordy. And it's related to redundancy because it means you're not being concise, right? We want to be concise. We don't want to be wordy. So common types of wordiness are using passive voice. So passive voice is basically when the subject of the sentence, the person or noun doing a verb, is kind of put after that verb instead of in front of the verb. So I'm going to give you an example. So passive voice, the homework was done by the student, right? So who's doing the homework? The student. but we've put that at the end of the sentence after the verb, right, was done. So that makes the sentence longer, right? We really want to aim for active voice in pretty much all situations. There's certain situations where you do want to use passive voice, but most of the time we want to go for active voice, where we say the subject is doing or does or did the verb, right? So the student did the homework. We want to have that subject of the sentence, the noun doing the verb, we want that to go first. So instead of the homework was done by the student did the homework. Using endings like ness, when there's a simpler form of the verb that you could use, or the word that you could use. So like gratefulness is a wordier version of gratitude. Gratitude is the more concise version. Extra verbs like would and will, right? So the author would describe, or she would say, or he is describing or will describe, right? Instead of just using that passive or active voice, rather, the author describes. So we want to use just simple active verbs as much as possible, usually in our writing. So let's look at a few examples. So let's look at this first couple together. So Toni Morrison would be describing Piccola as very vulnerable to society's hatred. This is I actually see this quite a lot in your writing, whether it's would be describing or is describing, instead of just making it an active present tense verb. We always want to write in present tense when we're doing literary analysis. So instead of would be describing, we just want to change that to describes. Toni Morrison describes Piccola as very vulnerable to society's hatred. Let's look at one more together, and then you'll do the rest on your own. So my older brother's music was loudly heard in every room of the house. Well, that's kind of redundant, right? Loud and heard. And it's also wordy, right? Adding these like ly can sometimes be an example of wordiness. So we could just say, my brother's music was loud in every room of the house. Simple as that. Okay, let's look at one more together. So the subjects that are considered most important by students. This is an example of passive voice. So we want to put the subject of the sentence, whoever's doing the verb, at the beginning, right? So instead of are considered most important by students, who's doing the verb here? The students. So we want to put that at the beginning. So the subjects that students consider most important, right? Present tense, active verb. And then we've got another example of passive voice here. I'm going to allow you to fix that one. So finish this practice and then stamp down here, what do wordiness questions look like and how do you answer them? And then we will come back together and review these questions as a class.